What's up guys, it's Avery here. I just closed on a home and I was able to get it for $20,000 under the asking price. And I know many people are trying to buy a home today and it's very difficult to do so in this seller's market. Many people are getting into bidding wars and offering way over asking and still getting beaten out. So in today's video, I wanted to go over how I was able to get a house under contract and closed for $20,000 under asking and what you can do to make your offer more enticing for sellers so that you can buy a home this year. So if this is your first time to the channel, or if you're returning and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, go ahead and do so. Tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on any tips for investing in real estate and things that you can do with your money in order to build your wealth. So the housing market is crazy right now, and that would be due in part to low interest rates, and many people have much more purchasing power because of those low interest rates, and they're more comfortable paying more for a home because of the cheap debt that they're able to acquire. And then there's also lifestyle changes. Many people at the beginning of the pandemic, they were spending a lot of time at home and they wanted to have a better home. So they wanted to go out and buy that nice home, have that big yard so they could have more space to themselves. As well as a lot of people made a lot of money in the last year and a half through things like cryptocurrency gains, as well as gains in the stock market. And lastly, home prices have been crazy because of lumber prices. Lumber prices have gone through the roof due to a lot of reasons like high demand, as well as the freeze over in Texas where a lot of plastics are created, and the supply chain has just not kept up with the amount of demand that has been happening. So home prices have gone up for a variety of factors, and these would be the main ones. And I did a video on the current housing market, and if you want to check it out, up here or in the description below and learn more about that, but of course after you finish this video. So I just closed on my third home and my first single family home in an awesome location in the Durham, North Carolina area. So I just increased my portfolio from 5 toilets to 7 toilets. And let me tell you folks, the more toilets you have, the more problems you have. But the more toilets you have that people pay you to poop in, the more wealthy you're going to be. And if there's nothing else you take away from this video, that should be it. Before I get into what you should add to your offer and the kind of things that you should be doing to be competitive in this market, let's talk about the things that you shouldn't be doing. So rule number 1, don't get emotional when you're purchasing a home. It's easy for people to get emotional and get into a bidding war and then overpay and then have a lot of regret later. But you might be saying, well, Avery, I want to buy this super nice house and I want it so bad. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I want $1 million, but I invested in Dogecoin way too late. So the important thing here is you stick to your game plan. You should have a game plan going into purchasing these homes. You don't want to overpay or go well over budget of what you expected. You don't want to have a crazy high monthly debt so that you become house poor. You want to make sure that you purchase these homes smart and that you don't get too attached to one certain home. Don't get yourself in a bidding war and pay way over asking just because you think this is your absolute 100% dream home. Next, just like the old adage of real estate, location, location, location. Location is really the most important thing in real estate. You can't change a home's location, but you can change a home. So make sure that you aren't buying a home in a bad location just because it's nice or because it's cheaper. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a good investment or a good place to buy a home. It's better to buy a not nice home in the best location than buy a really nice home in the worst location. Another thing that you're gonna not wanna do when you're purchasing a home and making an offer is waive an inspection contingency. I would not recommend not having an inspection on a home. So when you're purchasing a home, you typically get an inspection. The building inspector comes by, tells you what's wrong with the home. And many people have been waiving them because the less clauses that are in your offer, the more likely the seller will accept your offer. Because if you say, I do not need a building inspector, and they come by and tell you there's $100,000 of work that needs to be done, you can no longer back out of that offer because you didn't have an inspection contingency. If you have an inspection contingency, you can back out. So while it's important that you have that inspection contingency, and some people are not doing it because they think their offers can get accepted, I would not recommend it. It's not worth buying a house without doing that. The next thing that you don't want to do is get impatient. Go into it with the mindset that this is going to take a year and you're going to have 30 to 50 offers before you get any of them accepted. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen to you, but if it does, you were expecting it before you got in. If it takes you 6 months and 20 offers before you get that home that you want, versus 2 months and 5 offers, What's really the big difference in the grand scheme of things on your 30-year mortgage? You're going to be able to move into a home that you want to. It maybe just took you a little bit of extra time. So be a patient pig and make sure that you're not being impatient and buying the wrong home. The next thing, and probably the most important thing that you'll pay attention to in this what not to do portion of the video, is don't go into a bidding war on these homes. A lot of these real estate agents have been intelligent enough to list a home slightly below the market value, drum up a lot of demand because everyone goes and looks at Zillow and say, oh my gosh, that one's such a good deal, we could get this one. And then there are so many offers, 10, 20, 30 offers, and then the real estate agent tells all the people who offered that there's a ton of other offers, and if you want to increase your offer, go ahead and do so, because then it's more likely to get accepted. Now, this is smart from the real estate agent, but not smart from you, because you're too emotionally attached to this home and you thought it was a good deal at first, but now it's going to be way more expensive than if the real estate agent listed it at the actual market value. So now you're going to be going back and forth with all of these sellers and all of these buyers about paying way more than you should for this particular home. So don't get into that bidding war so that you're not overpaying like crazy for a home. All right, that covers my what not to do. So now let's talk about what you should do, the things that I did, and how I was able to get a home for $20,000 under the asking price. So the first thing that you need to do is smash that like button. Now, you don't actually have to do it, but I would really appreciate it, and it would help me out for that YouTube algorithm and push this video to more people so more people can get their offers accepted and get a home this year. So the first thing that you need to do in order to get your offer accepted would be, number one, have a pre-approval letter or have a proof of funds. More often than not, people are gonna have some type of debt associated with purchasing a home, aka a mortgage, and if not, you're going to have an all-cash offer, but you still need a proof of funds letter to show that you can actually afford this house. It's not gonna be like you go up to an owner of a home and say, ooh, I like house, I want to buy. And owner goes, okay, you can has. And you say, I can has? That is not how it's going to work. They need to have some official documents that show that you can actually afford the home, so when you give them your offer, they know that it's actually legitimate and you're able to buy the home. Second thing that is vitally important and something I talk about a lot is having a good agent. If someone is a good agent in this market who has been closing on homes and representing buyers who've been able to get homes in this market, they're just going to help you. They've been through it already. They're going to know what to do. They're going to make your offer stand out more than the other ones. They're going to navigate you well. They're not just going to be in it for the commission. They're going to be in it so that you can purchase a home with them, and then the next time there are any home buying needs, or if you have friends with home buying needs, you're going to refer to that agent again. So make sure you take the time and pick the right agent. Just because your brother's sister used a specific agent doesn't mean that you should use them. Make sure you do your research and find that best agent possible. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the actual offer, and some things that people have been adding to their offers that make them more enticing for sellers would be an escalation clause. Now, an escalation clause may sound like it's a big word and very overcomplicated, but it's actually quite simple. So if you had a $300,000 home and you offered $300,000 on it, but with an escalation clause saying that you would pay $5,000 over the next buyer up to, say, $330,000. So you have this $300,000 home that you offered $300,000 on, but then someone else came in, offered $310,000 straight up. It is a higher offer than yours, but based on the verbiage in your offer, you are going to be offering $315,000. So your offer stands out more than that other person, and they're more likely to come back to you. But if it gets to over $330,000, which is the max of your budget because you're not buying emotionally and you're being smart, then you're gonna get beat out on that particular home. But that's okay with you because you know there will be other opportunities. The next thing that I wanna talk about would be love letters. And this one is sort of an interesting topic because there's no way of knowing that these actually do anything or not. And a love letter would be a letter to the seller explaining why you would be a good buyer for the home. And I've heard some very interesting things that people want to put in these letters to entice the seller to sell to you specifically. Things like, oh, I love your sunroom and I think my cat would be so excited to be there. Or, I love the neighborhood, the park nearby is cool. If I'm a seller, I really don't give a about any of that. I just want to know that you're able to close. And with me, in any of the letters that I put in that I'm sending to sellers, they are going to mainly be about how I know what I'm doing and how I purchased homes before, and I understand what's going on, and I'm able to take on the renovations. And just because I'm getting an inspection doesn't mean that I am going to offer you any less. I understand that there are going to be repairs. I just want to buy your home, but I would like an inspection so I know what I'm getting into. Some things that I do to tailor my letter to the specific owner would be I go into the property assessor database for the specific area of a home that I'm looking to purchase, determine the owner, and then look them up on social media or on the internet to figure out who they are. So before I closed on this home, I had offered on another one, and the owners were two out-of-state owners who were a doctor and an accountant, and they had clearly just bought this in an investment. So I didn't talk to them about how nice the home was or the things that I was going to do on the inside to make it look better. I just said, I've purchased two pre-1900 multifamily buildings and fixed them up successfully before purchasing your home, and I know what I'm doing, and I can close on your property and get you the cash and the funds that you want. Now that's probably going to be more important to them than telling them that the cat in the sunroom would be happy in there. I don't think they would give a about that. So make sure that you're going to look up the owner, understand what they want. So on my newest purchase, on the home that I actually closed on, I didn't talk about any of the cash or investment side of things. It was a more single family neighborhood with a lot of families and parks nearby. So I talked a little bit more about the neighborhood and how it would be a great location and how it would be really easy for me to be able to move there and things would just be simple. So I really just talked a little bit more about the personal side of things, which helped that offer. Now, it's not necessarily true that these things will do anything, but I have seen before where people have added these letters and they've offered less than the next person, and it's been accepted because the seller has appreciated those offers. And it's really going to depend on the seller, so do as much research on them as you can, but some people won't care, they just want their money. Other people will maybe get a little bit emotional selling a home and appreciate that that person who is moving in is going to have a similar story to them, or maybe it's someone that they want to help out and feel for. So the next thing that helped me, and it actually helped me on 2 of the 3 properties that I purchased, would be looking at badly advertised homes. So like I talked about with that agent who listed that $300,000 home below market value, and then it drummed up a lot of demand, there's also the opposite. There could be that agent who really thinks they're gonna get $325,000, which is possible with that person who listed it below, but this agent doesn't really know what they're doing. So they listed the home at $325,000, and all of the people looking at it on Zillow are saying, oh, that's pretty expensive, even though if it were the opposite, they'd be willing to pay up to that. There's just that whole psychological effect. So less people are gonna be willing to go look at that home, but you being smart realize the agent doesn't know what they're doing, so you go and look at the home and then you offer them $310,000. And so now you're in below what that person who would have offered way more when the house was listed way less. So this can really happen and be a very good opportunity for you. And this is exactly what happened with my home. It was listed at $395,000. It sat on the market for a couple of weeks, obviously way too high. They went down to $365,000, and then I was able to close at $345,000. And it's not like the home was bad, and it was in a prime location. Now there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done to it. It's not move-in ready, it's not a retail home, which I always suggest that you don't buy. But it was a great opportunity because the real estate agent didn't know what they were doing. They were from a completely different town. They probably just looked at the Zillow's estimate and said, sure, let's do that. The next thing to think about your offer, and a bit more nitty-gritty, would be the length for closing, as well as the amount that you're putting down for earnest money deposit and due diligence. Now, length for closing, it depends on the type of offer you have. If you need an appraisal because you're getting a loan, it's not really going to be up to you so much. If you can offer cash, then you can offer a lot quicker of a closing, or you can offer a closing that is to the terms of the seller. Now, if you can close quickly and that's what the seller wants, that's great, but it's less likely that you can do that with a loan. And if you want to be able to offer the seller to close at a later date because it wants to coincide with maybe when they've bought a house and are able to move, then you can do that too, and that's better on their terms if you're a bit more flexible. Now, when it comes to earnest money deposit and due diligence, this is very location dependent. And I've bought homes in 2 different states, and it's very different in each of those states. So in Boston, you have a 7-day due diligence period. That is typical with your offer, where you have contingencies like an inspection. And if you go do an inspection and it turns out there's $100,000 worth of work, you can back out. So when you put your earnest money down, it's typically $1,000 in a standard market. Then you could get that $1,000 back if it turns out there's too much work on the inspection that you have to do when you end up buying the home. But more and more people are putting more money down. So you could put $10,000 down as your earnest money deposit, but you could still back out after that due diligence period depending on the inspection. And when you're offering for that inspection and your ability to back out, you write in a specific number. So if you write in, if there's $10,000 worth of work, then you can back out. If there's $50,000 worth of work, then you can back out. So the higher number that you put in there, the more likely the seller is going to accept your offer, because they're saying, wow, if there's $50,000 worth of work, they're still willing to take it on. And you can also offer your offer for an inspection being informational purposes only, so that you don't negotiate when you get the inspection. You can still back out and have that $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 amount, saying that if it's more than $50,000 worth of work, I'm willing to back out. But this inspection is just for my own information and not so that I can renegotiate with you after that due diligence period is over. Now in North Carolina, where I just purchased a home, it's very different. They have the due diligence period for 21 days. And during that 21 days, you can back out of the agreement for any reason. If you had a cold one morning and figured, you know what, I don't like the way that the wind has a breeze at this home, I'm gonna look somewhere else. You could back out for that reason. Although that might be pretty stupid, you can do it, and that's the way the laws are written up. And now this might sound like a terrible thing for the seller, but at least the seller has your due diligence. So in your offer, you offer a due diligence amount. And typically in a standard market, it's about $1,000. And when you offer this $1,000 and you decide to back out for whatever reason, the seller keeps that $1,000. So instead of increasing the amount on your loan, say going from $350,000 to a $375,000 offer, you could stay at a $350,000 offer, and to outbid someone else, you could offer a higher due diligence. You have more skin in the game. So instead of offering a $1,000 due diligence, you could offer a $5,000 due diligence. So if you go through the inspection period and you're doing your inspection, wood inspection, termite, all of that stuff, and you find out there's too much work and you want to back out, then the seller keeps that $5,000, but the seller knows that you're less likely to back out the more money that you put down for due diligence. So these couple of things, depending on what region you're in, can make your offer more enticing if you add a higher amount or do it for informational purposes only, instead of just increasing the value of the purchase price. So there are a couple things that you can do that make it so you're not overpaying for a home, but you have a bit more skin in the game. So the last thing, and I think the most important thing, and the thing that helped me a lot, is go away from where the demand is. And what that means is don't buy the retail move-in ready home. I just touched on that, but it's gonna be the most important thing. If everyone wants to buy that beautiful home that looks amazing, then go to where the homes don't look amazing, but are still in a good location. Like I said, you cannot change a home's location, but you can change a home. You can make a home look however you want, but you can't physically pick it up and then move it to a better plot of land that is in a better part of town. You can only do the things that are inside of the home. So if you buy in a good location of a home that's not as nice, that's gonna serve you much better off. And there's gonna be a lot less buyers because they're gonna walk in and think, oh man, I'm gonna have to get it painted, or I'm gonna have to buff out the floors. What are me and my family gonna do for a month while we're getting it all renovated? They don't wanna go through that hassle, so you're smart enough to know that if you can get into a home that needs some work, you can fix it up, earn money while you fix it up, because it'll increase the value more than the money you put into it, as well as have no bidding wars on your hand because less people are going to be interested in that home. The last thing that I'll talk about, and the thing that probably 99% of people are never gonna look at, would be any off-market deals. Now, if you can go to the neighbor's house or go to someone's house in the neighborhood, knock on their door and ask them if they wanna sell, or if you can go on the property record database, determine who the owner is, and go on US phone book or some type of phone book in whatever region you're in and figure out their phone number and call them. Maybe you can build a relationship with them before they put it on market so that you're not having to compete with everybody else. Now, I've actually never bought a home off market, and I don't really think you necessarily need to. You're able to do so once you have a greater network of people in the real estate world, but it's not completely necessary. It is an option. It will be more difficult for you, but once you get to the point of being able to buy from someone off market, you're gonna have little to zero competition other than yourself. So this is how I was able to, in this crazy market, get $20,000 under asking, get immediate equity in a home because I purchased it at a discount, and still am able to do a ton of work to the home to make it increase in value a lot more. So when you're going to buy your home, do not buy that retail ready home. Do not get too emotionally attached and fall in love with a home so that you get into a bidding war. Make sure that you're buying smart and doing the right thing so that you can get a home for the right price. Do not buy a home overpriced and then have too high of a monthly debt so that you're tied to that home and that you're house poor. You need to make sure that you can cover those mortgage payments in case the market crashes. So if you can get yourself through the low end of the market cycle and find yourself all the way back to the top at the next cycle, it's going to be higher than today's current high. So if you can afford those payments, you're going to be just fine. So I hope you guys like this video and it'll help you get your offer under contract this year so you can actually buy a home. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share with your friends so more people know what to do when they're attempting to buy a home. Thanks again for watching and hope to see you guys next time.